Chicago Bulls should not only be really excited about the play of Josh Giddey and Coby White, but also the young developing core that they have here. While I'm not ready to say that the Chicago Bulls have rebuilt the baby Bulls, they're damn close. And we're going to talk about why today. We're also going to look about what Modest needs to continue to add to his game to continue to maximize on the potential that he's bringing to the Chicago Bulls. Preview today's game against the OKC Thunder, and dive a little bit into the mailbag. All that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Tara Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today. And so the Chicago Bulls should be really excited about what they're building, right? And I think that, I get where there's doubt and things like that. But when you look at what the Chicago Bulls have done here, right, when you look at the fact that Coby White and Josh Giddey have accumulated and accounted for, I should say, about almost 60% of the Chicago Bulls offense when you pair in points off assist and points scored as well. Josh Giddey himself is almost at 30% of the Bulls' overall points when he's with his scoring and points created off assist in his time with the Chicago Bulls when he's starting. And so that's really good to see that from Josh Giddey. And the Bulls are building something here. Now, there are legitimate questions about what it needs to happen to go forth to continue to make this as strong as what it could be. But the Bulls should be really, really excited about the future of what they're bringing here. And that is something that we have been a different spot in, right? When you look at where the Bulls were coming into the season, one of the biggest questions was, all right, the Bulls have gone younger. How many of these young pieces are going to be building blocks for the future? The Bulls are starting to show more and more that they have more than what people initially thought. Coby White, if he could ever just be consistent, but this is the most consistent stretch that we're seeing from Coby White's career so far, the most 20-point games that he scored in a row, and he's now the number one option. Josh Giddey, the efficiencies that he's found with attacking and getting to the free throw line, those type of things. The three-point numbers, listen, I'm not going to say right now that he's going to be able to maintain that. I do know that his three-point percentage has gone up every single year, and there's no reason to think that that's going to stop for him. But the way he's been shooting it here lately since the All-Star break, I don't know if that's maintainable. But this is still a player, and I think the thing with Josh Giddey that you always have to look at it with is that he's best when he's making other players better, right? So even if Josh Giddey's not going to be scoring the 21 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists on 51% shooting from the field and 39% and 49% shooting from three-point range, you don't necessarily need him to do that as you continue to build this team out, right? This is one of the first time that the Bulls have a young core. You got Modest, you got Coby, you got Josh, right? Even guys like Dalen Terry and Julian starting to show more and more that they can be NBA players, but still the level of that we're still trying to figure out. The Bulls will be adding another first-round pick this year that they need to get right, regardless of where they pick at. Yeah, we know people want to be in the top 4, all those type of things. Regardless of where they pick at, though, they need to make sure they get that pick right, because if you do, that adds another young piece to this core. The Bulls are rebuilding the baby Bulls. That's what we're looking at here, right? You look at a younger squad that's playing the style that they are, that's not backing down, right? That's been in the top half of the league as far as defensive efficiency as well, despite us not, when you look at the roster, we don't have the best defenders, and some of our best defenders are out or either playing bad, Patrick Williams, but you have Io out, Lonzo out, right? Like, you have those type of guys. This Bulls team, while they still have legitimate questions, in no way am I saying that this is a team that right now doesn't have major questions. They have major questions in regards to the roster they're going to have to figure out, right? Now, most of that's going to be development. We're going to have to make sure that the Bulls, as a franchise, are better invested in development than what they have typically been, which Peter Patton has done a really good job at that. You look at Peter Patton and the way that he's helped even Coby score. You look at Ayo Dosunmu. Look, Ayo's numbers as a starter are phenomenal, right? And the balance is still, it needs to be struck here as far as building the team the right way. And that, myself, puts more onus on the front office to make sure that they're doing the things that need to be done to actually build a team, right? Now that's where AK and Eversley have really kind of like they get there, right? They get a part of the way there, and it's like they never seal it home, right? Like Ivan Lonzo, Zach, and DeMar, and Vooch, and how that team looked. Like, yeah, it looked great there for a minute. I know we're the number one team in the East. We wouldn't stay there, but that was still a really good base. Injuries, lack of development, it really took that apart, right? This is now you're doing this with a younger squad that, it doesn't have the injury history per se of like a Lonzo Ball and a Zach LaVine. You got to still find your way here, right? The Bulls aren't back yet. And in no way am I going to try to sell that the Bulls, that we are far off from being back, whatever back is, right? For a franchise that hasn't really done much outside the Derrick Rose era in the last 20 years. And yeah, we had the fun Baby Bulls era, but we're almost back to having a direction. And that's where we were far off from. We just did not feel like a franchise that had a direction. So over this last 8 games, going into the offseason, just remains solidifying that, right? Keep getting back to that place of, showing what we have and what we need to develop. Kobe and Josh Giddey need to use this offseason as big motivating factors. And I know Josh Giddey's probably going to go back over to Australia. That's fine. I can't wait to see how quickly he does leave and when he comes back in the offseason, because getting to work with these guys, I would love most of these guys to stay in Chicago, work with Peter Patton, continue to work out. But, hey, they got lives, and I'm not blaming them for those lives. But I know guys like Modest, guys like Io, right, guys that actually live in Chicago, they're going to be here working day in and day out like Io did last year with Peter Patton. And I think that's going to be a really important thing as well. But Modest, and Modest has things that he definitely needs to work on with the game. I'm not – one thing with me, and hopefully you guys find, I get very excited over my team, and I will look at the positives, but I don't glaze, right? And one thing that we have here that definitely needs to get stronger is Modest still has things that he definitely needs to work on, right? I think you got to look at Modest Buzelis getting better with his jumper, right? He's shooting 36% on 2-pointers, right? That's not really good. And the thing with Modest that I always look at is the fact that his being with the G League Ignite did absolutely nothing for Modest Buzelis' development. Nothing. They didn't work on his game enough. They didn't round out. If anything, they kind of changed his shot. He had to go back to it. Like, they didn't really work with him. But I think when you look at Modest and how he's improving in certain areas, right? Like, he shot 31.4% from 3 his first month as a starter. Now, in March, it's up to 36%. Good, right? His overall field goal shooting percentage, though, has gone down, and that's because of that 2-point percentage, right? It's 46.7% of his field goals in March. It was 50% in February. He just needs to be better, right? But those are things that's going to come. Also with Modest Buzelis, one of the things that he needs to prove on as well is that, and I want to be clear here, we're starting to see some of that. So it's good that we're starting to see of it. But Modest needs to create his own shot. Now, 80% of Modest Buzelis' shots are assisted. Now, when you have a young athletic player, when you have the point guards that you do, and Josh Giddey and Kobe and how they can catch guys, especially when you cut and you dive to the rim, things like that, Modest still needs to develop that in-between game. It's something that I really want to see him work on this offseason. But a Modest Buzelis that really attacks the development path this offseason will be huge for the Chicago Bulls. It'll actually be huge. And it just comes down, like, I don't want all of a sudden Modest to be some heavy ISO player or anything like that. That's not what you want to see from Modest Buzelis. That just isn't what you want to see. But when you look at that number of assisted shots, you got, and some of this is also on Billy Donovan, right? I want to be clear in that. He has to be able to put the ball on the floor more. And we're starting to see that. I want to keep making it clear that we are starting to see that a lot more from him. But the breakdown from it, almost 40%, almost 45% of Modest Buzelis' shots are coming from the three-point line. Another almost 40%, 38% is coming in the restricted area, so basically within 3 to 5 feet, right? He has no mid-range area. He's not even outside like the box of the paint, right? And with his length, with his ability to dribble, with his quick first step, that's one of the places that I really want to see Modest grow his game at this offseason, is being able to do those things, right? You got to do those things. And so as long as that starts coming along for Modest Buzelis, I think that you're going to see a player in him that dog mentality, the mentality that he has, the way that the aggressiveness that he does play with, those things are going to really open up his game. I said coming into the draft process, even before I knew if the Bulls drafted him, was that one of the things that we're going to be telling for Modest is how efficient he can be without his jump shot falling at a good rate. And I think we've seen that, right? So we've seen a player in Buzelis with his blocks, with his rebounds, the ability he does have to pass when he does have the ball in his hands a little bit more, that this is a player that's going to be able to stick around the NBA. No question on that, right? This is a player that is going to be a decent starter in the NBA at the bare minimum. I'm only saying that at the minimum. Now, how he rounds out those other parts of his game, becoming a more efficient shooter, putting the ball on the floor more, creating more for himself, right? Those type of things. If he can start creating that for himself, it's going to make him such a difficult player to guard, mainly because of the athleticism that he has, the jumping ability, especially if he's cutting off the ball and moving off the ball as well, and he's catching those backdoor lobs from Josh Giddey and Trey Jones and Lonzo Ball and those type of guys. It's going to make it really, really exciting for Buzelis as this career continues. So the Bulls are really starting to build something, right? So, and you compare that to Kirk, Luau, Ben as well, right? Like, not to compare them as the style of play, but the Bulls had a really nice base there. Now, you got other guys, Dalen and Julian. Julian especially, like, I want to see a big second and third year leap for Julian, just for him to refine it so much. I want it to be like we saw that Billy Donovan went to him as the sixth man for a little while, right? He was going to him first off the bench. Julian has a unique opportunity to really kind of fit in a lot of things, but we got to see that grow, right? And so what these guys turn into could help solidify that. But then it all comes down as well, not the most important piece, but one of the biggest questions is, who do the Bulls get in the draft, right? If they get another guy, I would say even if they get a Danny Wolf, right? That adds so much to having a young core that you can build off of. Now you got to hope that one of those guys start turning to a star. And, we'll see what happens there, right? But the Bulls are starting to, they've regained kind of that momentum that they've had that we were missing, right? When AK and Eversley came and took over this team, AK said that they wanted to build organically through the draft, over time, and prioritize development. They got away from that. Now we're seeing a course correction back to originally what they said they wanted to do. Now we just got to see them actually execute it and see it through. Having veterans like Kevin Huerter, having veterans like Trey Jones, having veterans like Zach Collins and even Jalen Smith, like, that's really good as well for a team that's developing, because you have those solid vet pieces that understand what goes into day in and day out playing winning basketball. Now we just got to bring it all home. Let's hope that we can do that. I'm going to pray that we can. And the Bulls are off to, listen, we're going to come out of the season, I think, with a lot more positivity over where this roster is and more direction and a clear direction on where this roster is than what we came into the season with. And I think that a little bit has to at least be acknowledged. And we got to see what we do. Let's finish out this season. Let's develop this offseason. Let's go out there and see what we're going to do in this postseason, whether it's in the play-in or playoffs, and then let's build off that. And that a lot of that goes to AK and Eversley and how they make that next step. But the Bulls' next step is having a game today against the OKC Thunder. And here's the thing that I'm going to lay out here, right? If the Bulls are competitive in this game, and I just mean competitive, right? I'm not saying win. We know that Kevin Huerter is going to be out this game, but if the Bulls can be competitive against this OKC Thunder team, a lot of people got to shut the fuck up about this run that the Bulls have been on. Has been a fluke or whatever else it is. If this Bulls team comes in here and plays well against the OKC Thunder, not even win, but they play well against the OKC Thunder, and then we got the Cavs later on in the week. If we play well in those two games, I think that shows that, hey, this nature that the Bulls have, this competitive nature, this fight that they have is legit, right? Now, again, you guys know I don't predict wins and losses. I haven't done that since about 2 months into this show, because we just have had a team that's been so bipolar that I haven't felt the place to be able to do that. But this is an OKC Thunder team that's having right now the highest net rating in the history of basketball in their wins. 13.1 net rating. First in the NBA. Third in offensive rating. First in defensive rating. Seventh in true shooting percentage. This is one of the most efficient teams. They force turnovers very well, right? Their assist to turnover ratio as a squad is extremely well. This is going to be a battle for the Chicago Bulls. If the Bulls step up in this game, and like I said, I'm just looking for competitiveness. How much fight do you have, especially after a loss, right, that you didn't have energy in? How much fight do you have in this game? How much fight do you have? How do you come out there and put it all out on the court for your team, for your city? That's the question that I have here. And if the Bulls can do that, they're on the road in OKC. Hey, we'll see, man. We will see what happens there. But this is one of those games where Again, I don't really like measuring stick games for a team that is slated to finish below 500. But I will say this: this is a game where I'm taking a lot of key interest on how do the Bulls attack a defense like the OKC Thunder, because of what Kobe and Giddey have been doing. If it has any monochrome of working against the OKC Thunder, it would say a lot about the validity of how much you can build off that going forward. Now, I'm not going to say that if there are some struggles there, we can also look at it and say, hey, this is the best defense in the league. But I'm more so looking at the process, what goes into it, not the success, the process, right? Do the Bulls fluster, right? Do they get in their own heads? Do they get away from the things that have been making them a really good team, right? Now, we already know we're going to be missing Kevin Huerter, which Kevin Huerter has been surprisingly really important for the Bulls' defense and offense. And that's going to be another thing, a wrinkle in this. But I really, really am excited to see how the Bulls perform in this game, because this is going to be a slobber knocker for the Chicago Bulls. I mean, as far as they can get absolutely bitched out and punched around. So we're going to see how that works out for this team. But with that said, you guys know on Mondays, I like to do some catch up on anything that was left in the mailbag. We got 2 today, one from Corn, one from Reggie. Let's get into this one from Corn now.
What it don't do, King Drip, it's your brother Corn, man. Hey, man, let's get right the fuck into this shit, man. Hey, yeah, man, I'm a little bit more excited, even though that we lost, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But even, it was okay. You know, I'm not really stressing or pressing over that, man. And that's not really what I'm here to call for. I'm here to call to say, I have reformed. I am no longer, a pro tanker. This team made me a believer. AK is making me a believer. Billy. Fucking Billy. Hey, Billy. You're doing a good job there, man. Watching the growth of Giddey, Coby, and of course Modest. Modest had a good game, you know what I'm saying, in the stat sheet, of course, right? I'm just excited now of what's going to come next. You know, it's just, I can't believe I'm saying this, man. I want to see this team win out. I'm really saying that right now. I want to see this team go to the playoffs. Yes, I just said that. I want this team, whoever they face, I want them now to have, it went from going down to let's get the top lottery pick to now. I want them to have an experience. I want them to have the experience to be in the playoffs, to know what it's like to be in the playoffs, and against most likely one of the 2 of the best teams in the East. You know, that would be good for them. That's what I'm on. I have changed my ways. I am no longer a pro tanker. I am now for the Bulls to make the playoffs. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying this, man. I thought, man, you know how I was. You know how I was, man. I was ready to watch this motherfucker die straight up. But now, hey, man, let's go, man. Let's go, man. There's actually light at the end of the tunnel. It's actually light, man, and I'm excited, man. I was emotional at the last game, man. I'm still pumped up, man. And let's go, man. Let's go, man. Let's go, C-Red. Blessings.
You know what, Corn? I actually respect it. And I know some people are going to, let me not say I know. I wouldn't be surprised when people leave some comments like, oh, you're flip-flopping or whatever to you. But I'll say this. When new information, it's okay to change your opinion when you're basing it off facts. Like, and that's a world that it seems like we're getting further and further away from. People like to paint you into takes rather than, you're actually analyzing what's in front of you. To say that you rather go from seeing the team's tank to saying, oh, I'd rather see what this team can do in the postseason. Let's get this experience. Let's get this XP. Let's grow. Let's see how we stand up. I mean, that shows growth of not only a level of awareness from you, but also the place that this team has gone, right, with the way and the level of play. And there's never a problem with changing your opinion when you're basing it off of how a team is playing. So I commend you on that. I think that the Bulls have played really well, and I think there should be more people that are like, let's see what this team can do. I get it. I understand. Like, wanting a top 4 in this draft, the Bulls were never going to be that low anyway, right? They were never going to be that low. And we'll see what the future does hold. I still look at the Orlando Magic as a team that still think in that plane is going to be very dangerous for the Bulls to get by if they even have to. They could dodge them. But we'll see, man. I think overall, this Bulls team has just put themselves in a position where the future is so much brighter. And a lot of people should be inspired by the play on the court because the players have really been playing inspired as well. So we'll see what that does bring. All right, let's get to the next voicemail, man. This one's from Reggie.
Hey, this is Reginald just calling in the day after the loss to Dallas. And, one of the things about that loss, it made Bulls fans realize that, even though it's good to have hope, it's not good to be overconfident. You had guys, I guess, calling you up to say, what are the chances the Bulls can finish 500? Or maybe the Bulls can get the 6th seed or something like that. But the Bulls are what they are, which is at this point a really young and scrappy team. But they still have a long way to go before they can be considered, a legit playoff contender. For instance, right now, looking at that game, when coaches started to strategize against Giddey and Coby, it further emphasized the point that neither man are, number one scorers, and that's something that the Bulls are going to have to look into. You got a lot of good role players, but you're still going to need that number one scorer, which is why, the Bulls are playing a lot better without Zach, but you can still see where if Zach was on this variant of a team where Coby was actually hitting his shot, Giddey was hitting his shot and playing, probably the best defense of his career at this current moment, then maybe this Bulls team would be able to challenge for that 5th seed. But, it is what it is. My question to you is, do you think Giddey and Coby can play with a number one? You saw that they struggled to do with Zach, who was, a 3-level scorer. But do you think they can, is there anyone out there that fits the role of the number one scorer for this team as is? And lastly, you talked a lot about, Josh and Giddey getting deals. Are they worth $70 million? Are they a $70 million backcourt? My answer to that would be no. First, because Coby's still inconsistent. We still haven't seen him do a whole year where he was the man. And Giddey, this is his first year here, and he's only been playing at this high level roughly since the All-Star break. And I will still offer Giddey like a 5-year, $150 million deal because he does good things on other levels, but he still has a long way to go before he's a major star at the point guard. And same with Coby. But what deal do you think the Bulls should offer guys like Ayo?
Can Giddey and Coby play with the number one? That's a great question, Reggie. And here's the thing. They would have to really adapt. Right now, I think Giddey can play with anybody. Coby, I think we saw Coby play, and he fit in well with DeMar, right? Like I think people look automatically at Kobe's run last year, and they were like, Zach wasn't on the floor. But let's not forget that you had another ball-dominant player in DeMar DeRozan on the floor as well. I think it comes down to who that number one is, right? How do they play? Are they number one to where does their game fit seamlessly in with Giddey and Coby, right? Are they number one that still can pass and facilitate as well as just score, right? There's a lot of different avenues for that. As far as who that number one is, I can't answer that because I don't want the Bulls to chase a number one that's already in this league. I want the Bulls to find a number one in the draft. That's what I want the Bulls to do. I want them to build this thing organically. I don't want to go star chasing. I'm not one of those guys that the Bulls should trade for Bam Adebayo or trade for Domantas Sabonis or any of those. I'm not in that camp. I want the Bulls to do what they actually said they wanted to do when they took over this team. Build organically over time through the draft and develop what you have on this roster. That's the way that I want to see this team go. And I think that that's going to be an important part. And if you do get somebody else who's young, who has to learn to grow and play with these players, then you don't have to necessarily worry as much about forcing it to fit. It can fit because it's developing over time, right? That's the way that I look at it. But, we'll see. We'll see what the future does hold there. But, guys, thank you for leaving those voicemails. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following us at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you ready for Ken, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.